Hey everybody, C Note here, and welcome to Super Myers-Briggs Turbo EX, the show that is talking type. I don't know, I still don't have a tagline. Today on the show, I wanted to talk about really talking self-development, personal development, and typology, and how to go about it when you're talking about it with other people. Maybe you just learned about type and you're really excited about it, or you really don't know a lot about typology and you are interested in helping other people, or you're someone that's trying to teach about it and you're trying to find ways to really connect with people and you're not really connecting because all you're doing is talking about functions and enneagrams and all this stuff, and like what is personal development really, and I think that's what I want to talk about and really kind of hash out and try to work through as we talk on this show. So stick around. I'm going to hit the button. We're going to do the thing. Let's go. Okay. All right, welcome to the show. Hope you guys are doing well. Today I wanted to talk all about personal development and what it really consists of in relation to personality tests and typology and cognitive functions and enneagrams and the Graves model and all these different models and communication and essentially it all leading to context, right? I mean, if we are talking about typology in a vacuum, we're talking about any kind of typology in reference to enneagrams or the cognitive functions, and especially if we're talking about cognitive functions on their own, essentially, like if you're kind of talking about it in a vacuum and just speaking about like NE always does this, and extroverted intuition always does this, and extroverted feeling always does this, and introverted sensing always does this, etc., etc. It's kind of distancing from the human component, right? Which I think is really interesting when we start to really dive into it, because typology, when you're starting to learn about Myers-Briggs, or Myers-Briggs is really the example I want to use right now. When talking about Myers-Briggs, it's hard enough to explain to someone like what it actually is in terms of the brain wiring and how it relates to who you are as a person before the bias is like added onto you, right? So how do we really start to talk about typology in a way that connects with as many people as possible and gets the point across as much as possible, right? I mean, you've heard about tests like 16Personalities, which not everyone's a fan of. I think it's fine. I think it's a good starting point for a lot of people to even get introduced to the idea of typology. But like, how do you fully inform someone who is even a layman at this, right? And I think some of the best instances I've seen of this is not necessarily literally translating Myers-Briggs, but adapting it into a personality model that relates to your customer. So if you're a marketing person, you're marketing courses or things like that, if you come up with your own version of that framework using knowledge of typology, then you can kind of give people a window into, what fits their context. And what I'm really exploring, and this is really like, I'm literally exploring this, so I'm not coming here with specific answers per se, but I'm doing a Brand Blaster course. It's called Brand Blaster. It's all about helping people who fear self-expression to feel comfortable with the idea of success by being themselves, right? And part of that is taking my knowledge of as a designer, as a marketing person and branding person, and really bringing typology into it and allowing people to unabashedly be themselves. So there's like some mindset stuff in there, there's some mental health stuff in there, and there's some typology stuff in there. But I don't necessarily want to go into this course having to explain everything about Myers-Briggs and what it is and what it means, etc., etc., because it's not going to be easy to grasp and pick up. I think I will to some degree, because I do have another course that's the my training course, my free course, that, hey, if you want to learn more specifics about this, go check out that course. That's why I created the course, so I don't have to keep explaining it over and over again, right? So the idea with this Brand Blaster course is that I want to come up with like video game based archetypes that relate to the types, which is a common thing that a lot of people do, and try to be as honest and direct about those types as possible in relation to those character types. But I think also I'm going to make it not necessarily a test that they take, but it's a selection process mixed with the test taking. So I'm still playing with this, but I think the general idea is here that I will have sort of a list of different starter types. So I'm going to relate them to Pokemon like types. So, for instance, like ESFP is a fire type, for example. And but then I'm also going to relate it to 3 marketing personality types, and basically try to send people down this sort of rabbit hole of connecting all of the different sort of styles and personalities in relation to branding and marketing. So again, I think that's where like context comes into play, right? Like, why is someone learning typology? What do they need it for? What do you need it for, right? Are you just learning it so you can just kind of play around with other people and talk about it? Or is there a practical application? How are you using this in the real world? How are your clients or customers using this in the real world? And how can you translate that information for them? Because there are people who are learning about typology. I think Personality Hacker is a really great resource for someone who is learning about typology and can actually use this to then develop their own sort of personality assessment for their clients, etc., to help them, help create the context between the seller and the buyer, right? And I think that's what's been most helpful for me, not only in my personal context with understanding myself, but it's going to help me create more specific context for my clients. Because again, with this process that I'm trying to figure out, I want them to select their character first. Like, I want them to select which character correlates to which personality type, right? I want them to select it. Like, which description and which character like resonates with them, right? And then I'm going to give them the list of types, like not the personality types, not the Myers-Briggs personality types, but like Pokemon types again, and have them select that. Then I want them to actually go take a test, take the Myers-Briggs test on like Personality Hacker or 16 Personalities or something where I can get a quick result from them, or they can get a quick result. I mean, I know there's questions of accuracy, whatever. The point is to create a couple of points of data so that they can start to see the commonalities and correlations. Because like what I want to do is be able to get a sense of what they feel about themselves in comparison to what the test might think about themselves, in comparison to what they actually want. And then in comparison, when they talk to me, how it all relates to the overall big picture. Because I want to know what they think about themselves just as much as the type that I would tell them that they are, right? Like, I would want to know what has led them to this point to make them answer questions in a certain way, to make them think that they are this type. That would help me ascertain all of the subconscious bias that has been placed upon them and led them to this point. Because at some point, if you're going to build a brand around yourself, if I'm going to be working with people to try to help them build a brand and try to become more comfortable with their personality, I need to help them understand that there is the subconscious brain wiring, and then there is the stuff stacked on top of it. And not all of the stuff is bad, but some of it needs to be unlearned. So we need to identify and separate what is the subconscious stuff from the conscious stuff, and try to get as much of it as we can in a place that's like untainted, right? That's a very INTP thing for me to say, that I want the data to be untainted. But I think that's what's going to help me, is making sure that they don't necessarily know the complete secret sauce of what it is I'm trying to do. And then I'll reveal it to them at the end. And it's kind of like this aha moment of like, okay, this makes complete sense. And then all of that leads to them picking their starter Pokemon, which would relate to their starting personality type in relation to marketing. So, for instance, I'm going to pull up my notes. Like right now, this might change, but right now I have like Charmander is like an extrovert type, adventurous, charisma focused, more of a showy type of person, a little louder, entertaining, passionate. So you might think of like ENFPs and ESFPs, for example. I haven't figured out which types are going to fit with each Pokemon, but we're going to kind of, again, it's going to be like a culmination of all the results that leads me to decide, not a test, that leads me to decide which starter Pokemon they fall into. Because the idea here is that there are basically three main focuses that people have when it comes to marketing these days: audio, video, really audio or video or the written word, essentially. And, some of the extrovert, adventurous, the Charmander types are going to be more likely to be comfortable with vlogging or podcasting with guests or wanting an Instagram presence or Snapchat or Facebook Live or being a group leader or being some sort of attractor in some sort of way, right? And there's going to be a little bit of fieriness to them. They're going to have some personality, and we want to be able to utilize that. So all of that information that I would be gathering during the course of the course is all about assessing where they would fit into this starter Pokemon pack, right? Because they have a brand, they have a service or some sort of business, and they need to know how to market it, right? So the idea is to give them a place that matches at least close enough to their personality, because we don't need to get into the nuances of typology to get them in at least the general direction for how they should be marketing themselves, and then relating it to their Myers-Briggs personality type. And that's where like the one-on-one part of it is going to come into play. So I've got a Squirtle type, which is kind of a mix of introvert and extrovert. Someone who's like, in terms of Myers-Briggs, someone who would be a little bit more developed in terms of probably an introvert who has more extrovert tendencies. So I kind of think of myself as the muse for this one, for the Squirtle. Kind of a versatile, idea-focused type. They're more likely to do like idea-focused podcasts or concept-based podcasting. They'll definitely prefer audio over video. They might do video, but if they do video, they'd prefer like a voiceover on screenshots or something like that. Or I would recommend, in terms of comfort level, that this is what they would do. They'll be a little bit more of a specializer, and they would do video with screenshots or B-roll with bursts of fun, but they're definitely more of an informer or a teacher type. And then the Bulbasaur would be the third type, which is more of a heavier introvert. And they're a little bit more thoughtful, thorough. They're more likely to be a writer. They might want to do like a solo podcast or write stories or, do tell stories on podcasting. They might be a blogger, favor Twitter or Facebook, or prefer like one-on-one coaching as opposed to groups or Facebook groups or anything like that, right? So, the point is that, so I kind of shared a lot of my secret sauce that's going to be happening within the Brand Blaster course that I'm doing. And it's all in relation to typology. And I think the important part about anyone learning how to use typology for yourself or for others or for marketing purposes is that, what is being told on a test or what is being told through even the descriptions or Enneagrams or all of the things that we've been kind of learning when it comes to typology, it's context, it's the culmination of personality, it is all those pieces plus all the variables that you don't really fully get, right? Like cognitive functions are a piece of the puzzle. It's cognitive functions don't define who we are, we define what to do with those cognitive functions. And I think sometimes that gets flipped for people, where it's like, okay, I've got extroverted sensing in my cognitive stack, so this means I'm going to be doing this more often. But you are still in control of what to do with those cognitive functions. Like, you are in control of what it is that you need. Your brain is going to tell you when you're thirsty for that, but how you get that drink is up to you, right? So it is part of the course that I'm working on, and the part of what I think is most effective for teaching typology or helping people determine their typological profile or anything like that, is being open to the idea that people are just not that simple, that people are very complex. And I think if we presented typology a little bit more as complex, that it isn't just about the 4-letter code, as meaningful and helpful as the 4-letter code has been, I think the simplicity of it sort of stops a lot of people from wanting to learn more about it, or they assume that that's the be-all end-all. And I think if we make the process just a little more complicated, or people-focused, or coaching-focused, or individualized-focused, or allow it to be more of a funnel-based process where you're kind of putting someone, through a little bit of work, and not just having them taking a test and spit out a result, but maybe it's a test and you get a result. Take another test, you get a result. Take a third test, get a result. Compare those notes, give them another test, give them a result. And then you talk to a person and you check all those results. You see, okay, why did you get these results versus the behavior I'm observing now, and really comparing all those notes and getting to a final result. I know it's convoluted, but I think it's more accurate at the end of the day, and it kind of helps us get to a place that can be helpful for us as a personality and personally, but also when we're marketing things and we're sharing things with people and really trying to market to the right people and create the right focus for the people that we're teaching and connecting with. So I hope all of that made sense. I had some really great discussions on Twitter with some people about all of this stuff in some ways, and I think we were kind of dancing around a lot of the same topics when we were discussing it, and I think it all leads to, I think a lot of people in the typology community agree with the notion that tests can be misleading in terms of understanding what it is that they're intended for. They're definitely meant to be kind of fun and an introduction and starter pack, but it's not always clear that there's more to learn. And I think if we're creating our own courses, we create the opportunity for us to be able to teach it in a way that is wrapped in a context that people can understand and be able to use it in that context to be able to move forward. So in my case, with the marketing context, I can give people a clear direction with the 3 starter Pokemon and say okay, you're more likely to appreciate this type of thing, and then relate it to, what they actually feel. And, I'm letting people make choices instead of the test determining who they are and them being stuck with it. And then introducing the idea that you are only one type, and kind of helping them navigate who they are to where they want to be, and how and what's possible in between, right? So it's all tricky, it's all complex, but it's just kind of like a thought that I wanted to get out. And yeah, I know. I think it's all really interesting. So typology and development is something that is complicated. I think it does involve learning multiple models if you're really in that sort of headspace. But I think if you're not applying context to it yourself or people, or adding the human element and variable of emotional responses and bias and traumas and all sorts of things that are going on in your life or their life, then we're kind of missing the point altogether, right? We're not trying to strip people of, what it is that they are. We're trying to give them the base level understanding so that they can keep aligned, stay aligned, and stay in tune, and go in a place that is not causing them unnecessary stress. So I'll probably do more episodes on this type of thing in the future. I think it's really interesting. I love the notion of development, simply just not being this easy, right? And that there is so much more to it, that people are complex, that everybody has their own story, everybody has their own thing, and I love the individualistic nature of it. I used to not be that way. I used to not think about that way. I used to think that all people should be this, but I love and embrace the fact that people are different, and I think to harness that and unleash that is going to allow more people to thrive and shine in this world in a positive way. There's a lot of negativity out there, and I think it's a result of people just not being able to be themselves. And I want to help encourage that. So that's it for the show. If you're interested in that Brand Blaster course, you can go to bit.ly/Brand Blaster. There's a pre-order up for that. I'm still working on all of the bits and details. There's one video up there right now. So you can go pick that up. That is $29 until the end of the year. And then when it goes live on the 1st of January, it will be going up to $79. So pre-order that and it'll be in your inbox when it is ready. And if you want to learn, if you're fairly new to typology and you want to kind of get my perspective on it, you can go to supermbti.training. I kind of give you an overview of all of the types. It's about learning everything about typology, not just what your type is. You can take tests to learn that. But it's not just test taking. It is podcast style discussion of introvert versus extrovert. Does ambiverts exist? What is intuition? Intuition versus sensing. We talk a little bit about politics and religion in relation to those things. And thinking versus feeling, insensitivity of thinkers. Like there's a lot of stuff there. So supermbti.training, go check that out. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening to this show. I'll catch you next week. This show is going to be Mondays from now on. So Monday morning, it'll be in your inbox or wherever you listen to this. So leave a rating or review. If you have a question, call into anchor.fm/supermbti and let me know if you like this show. We're also Super MBTI on all the social platforms. So leave us some love or ask questions or, I don't know, tell me it sucked. It's fine. So that's it. I gotta go do things. So I'll catch you guys later. And that's it. So bye from the Super MBTX family, which is just me. So, okay, bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Super Myers-Briggs Turbo EX. We're going to help you with Myers-Briggs and all that fun stuff. And if you want to jump straight into the advanced course, go to supermbti.training. If you want to check out my other shows, go to dopamine.life for my mental health podcast. And you can go to cnote.show to check out the media podcast. So if you love this show, go to anchor.fm/supermbti and leave some love, leave a review, share it with your friends, all that good stuff. And most of all, thank you. Thank you for listening to Super Myers-Briggs Turbo EX.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.